can we actually jump at the horizon? Because you mentioned as a social democrat, like you focus on the policies of today, but you also have a vision and dream of a future. And so Marx did as well. So the perfect communism at the end. Can you describe that world? Also, is there elements to that world that has elements of anarchism? So again, like I said, there's Michael Malice next door. So like anarcho-communism. I don't even know if I'm using that term correctly, but basically no central control. Can you describe what that world looks like?
Yeah, I think the traditional socialist vision of kind of, if you want to call it full communism, would be very similar to the anarchist vision of a world without coercion, mass abundance, and so on. I myself don't share that vision. I believe that we will always need to have a state in some form as a way to, one, even just mediate difference. I think traditionally a lot of Marxists have thought that after you remove the primary contradiction, quote unquote, of class, that all other political questions would be resolved. And I think that's a lot behind a lot of the thinking of we're going to have a full communism after politics.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there will be an after politics. I think, for one thing, let's say, I'll give you another Northeast example. Let's say me and you were trying to, with different groups of people, we're trying to figure out how to build a crossing of the Hudson River. And for various reasons, you and the people around you want to build a bridge. Me and the people around me want to build a tunnel.
Mm-hmm.
That's a question that you will probably need a mediation for, right? You'll need one, it's a big project, so there'll be a very complex division of labor and so on. But even beyond that, just politically, you will need the state to mediate the difference. You'll need to have a vote that people trust, have institutions that people trust, and so on to make a decision. Society is never going to go beyond that decision making.
You don't think it's possible outside of the state to create stable voting mechanisms? Or is human nature going to always seep into that?
I just wonder why we would have to. If the state is democratic and responsive, the state is an authoritarian.
So it might not be called a state, but it would function as a state, right?
But why not just call it a state? But in other words, like, if you don't have something like that, then don't you have a greater risk of tyranny or a tyrant emerging in the vacuum? So I think people's fear of the state is what would happen if the state had too much power. And I think that's a legitimate fear. That's why we have democratic kind of checks on state power and certain guarantees and of freedom and so on. But yeah, I guess I just wonder, I'm more afraid of the vacuum and not having a democratic responsive state and what the world would turn into. And also, I'm just not a utopian thinker, if that makes sense. Like I like to think that I'm an egalitarian thinker. I'm a socialist, but my mind just goes to, like, I could see a vision of the future that I would like 50, 60 years from now. Maybe there's some sort of future of superabundance and automation, and there's some sort of techno-utopian future. We don't want some of those things that would exist in my, 5 minutes from now vision of socialism, but I just don't see it. And in general, I'm kind of wary of visions of change that seem like they're not built off little pieces that we have now and not built off history and experience and whatever else. Like, I don't want a year zero. I don't even like the term prehistory, because I think there's a lot in history that I want. I want Shakespeare under socialism. I want a lot of things that I think we should be grateful for. There's a part of tradition that I think that exists that's hierarchical and exploitative and whatever else. But there's another part of tradition that's our sense of place and belonging and our connection with the past and hopefully the future. And I want to keep that.
Yeah, so you're worried about revolution or otherwise, a vacuum being created, and you're worried about the things that might fill that vacuum. So the anarchists often worry about the same mechanism of the state that controls voting or keeps voting robust and resilient and stable, the same mechanism also having a monopoly on violence. And so that's the tension. So they get very nervous about a central place having a monopoly on violence.
Whereas if there is going to be a place with a monopoly on violence, let's just say we temporarily take that for granted, should it not be a place with a skilled, elected, accountable, transparent civil service with a democratic mandate and so on?